Hello, sweet parents. Welcome to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away podcast. My name is Dr. Janet Steinkamp, and during each episode of When Our Adult Children Walk Away, I will provide my professional and personal insights, information and opportunities for your self-reflection and growth, tips and tricks to make every day count, and encouragement to keep moving forward. I'm here to help you dig deep and get down to the root causes so that you can find your way out of the darkness to a positive and lasting relationship. Grab your notebook and a pen, settle into your favorite chair, and let's get to it. Hi. In this episode, we are talking about our dads, our fathers of estranged adult children. Happy Father's Day. I know that's an odd thing to say, and yet we do need to celebrate, right? You're a father, you're a dad, and as difficult as things are right now, we need to celebrate the fact that you are here and doing this work and doing what you need to do to figure things out with your adult child. So bravo to you. And we're going to talk a little bit today about rebuilding trust. So this is the second of our Father's Day episodes. So let's dig in. First, why is Father's Day difficult for estranged dads? Well, there's the obvious. You know, you're either your relationship is really rocky with your adult child or you're somewhere on that continuum of estrangement. Listeners, if you have not listened to the episode or read the blog on my website about the continuum of estrangement, please do. Because when I talk about estrangement, that is my shorthand for that continuum. If I make mention of an estranged adult daughter or son, please know that I'm talking to all of you. Anyone who has a fractured or fracturing relationship with an adult son or daughter. So that's the obvious, right? There's something not right in your relationship that you're concerned about enough that you have found me and are listening to this podcast. Then there are three other thoughts that I have. The first one is often dads will say when they get in a spot where things are really difficult for them and their concerns and their feelings and the difficulty is heightened. And Father's Day is one of those days. Fathers ask me, should I reach out? Is this a day I should reach out to them? You know, I'm thinking of them. I hope they're thinking of me. Do you think that would be a good idea? So we're going to talk about that. The second thing is, should I send a message? Or will that push them away further? Is there some concern that it might make things worse? And the third thing is, does my child even think of me on Father's Day? Do they even recognize that it is Father's Day? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to get started about the difference between estranged daughters and estranged sons when we're talking about dads who are estranged. There is not as much difference with moms and their estranged adult children, regardless of gender. They have very similar reasons that they cite as to why they are estranged or the relationship is breaking down. Let's look at estranged daughters first. Often, our daughters who are pulling away or who have cut ties, they cite that there's an emotional neglect with their dads, that there's criticism, and that they're left feeling unheard in their childhood. Now, our daughters might also be saying that about their moms. But in this episode, of course, we're talking about the dads and focusing on what our daughters are telling us about why they pull away from their dads. The second reason is because our daughters are more likely to desire emotionally validating conversations, not necessarily the strength of our dads. In a traditional family, in the traditional roles of mom and dad, typically mom is the primary caregiver, and she's more responsible for the nurturing, the growth, the emotional wellness of their adult child, or of their child when they're growing up. The father is more focused on and responsible for physical development, activity, fun, socializing. And of course, those two roles blend, and I'm speaking in kind of general terms here. So don't be put off by that description. The third reason our daughters tell us they pull away is because they expect really deep apologies before considering reconnection. Really deep, emotional, considered and addressed apologies and amends. If you've not listened to the episode on apology, accountability, and amends, please do, because dads, this plays a huge role in how your adult daughter is going to want to reconnect. The work that you are going to need to do to get them to listen to you again, or to start to trust you again. The fourth reason is that they are more sensitive to dismissive or defensive responses from their dads. If they come to you with something that they want to talk about and you become defensive, they're going to stop. You've lost them. They're gone. Even if they're sitting there while you're stating your defense, they're only sitting there because they're trying to run out the clock in most cases. They may ask a secondary question or a follow-up question. They want only to check in and make sure that you really are being defensive and not listening. The difference is what our sons tell us about why they pull away is that they often struggle with unresolved expectations, generally around masculinity and emotional expression. They too are looking to learn from you how to be a man, how to be a male in our society, what that role looks like in our society. Even if there is some identity change going on for them, they still need to understand the roles of the traditional male and female in our society. They may choose not to follow those, but they do need to learn those from you. So if that didn't happen smoothly and with some trust and mutual respect when they were growing up, that wound is going to be there in their adulthood, and they may choose to act on that. And if they do, then there's some resolution needed. Our sons are less likely to initiate reconnection. We hear that over and over from our adult sons. They're not going to reach out. They're going to wait for you to. And they may be open to indirect gestures, where moms have a much more direct channel of communication to our sons and daughters, and they need to really protect that. With our dads, that channel, that direct channel, also needs to be open. However, there are some less direct, in-your-face kinds of strategies that we can put into place to start up that emotional conversation. And then the last thing that our sons tell us is that they really need trust to be built through activities and not just words. Actions speak louder than words. So when we talk about indirect activities or indirect connections, I'm talking about just as an image, a dad and a son standing on the side of a lake, casting their fishing poles in. So there's that parallel activity where they can also talk. There's also an opportunity to talk about the fishing, the weather, all kinds of things, and also to begin to reach out and rebuild that trust. So how do we then build that trust through action? Well, we build it by changing the behaviors that they've asked you to change, that they're asking you to modify to fit better in their world, and to act on those changes, to be consistent. I am putting together a Father's Day class, 2 classes actually, one for each of these 2 podcast episodes. So to talk about that more and explore that a little bit more, I'd encourage you to sign up for that class. Sign up sooner rather than later. There are only 12 seats in each class. That's to keep the conversation small and make sure everybody has a chance to ask their questions. And if it fills, I'll add more sections. But just so you know, those classes are coming because you may have questions about these things. A one-size-fits-all to reconnecting, building trust, opening up that communication channel does not work. One-size-fits-all does not work. Daughters may need more emotional validation, where our sons need more quiet consistency. They need us to act. And in both cases, our dads are probably going to have to ensure that their son and daughter knows that the communication channel is open and they are there and available when their son or daughter is interested in opening up the dialogue. Let's talk more specifically about rebuilding that trust. At the beginning of this episode, I listed 3 common thoughts that dads have on Father's Day. The first is, will my child reach out? And the second is, should I reach out? Should I send a message, or will that push them further away? And the third is, does my child even think of me? Is my child even thinking of me on Father's Day? Do they even know it's Father's Day? So with those 3 items in mind, let's talk about trust. First, I'm going to suggest that you self-reflect. Really think about why you would be reaching out. Is it to satisfy your need, or is it because you think they may be open to the contact and it might meet a need for them. Consider your past interactions, what's worked and what hasn't, and make sure that if this is about fulfilling your own need, take a pause and think about if that is worth the risk of them pulling away further. Sometimes silence is the best option. If they've issued a no contact statement, then we need to follow the no contact, even on Father's Day. If they are not that far estranged, then there's room to think a contact on Father's Day might be reasonable. It cannot be guilt-based. It cannot be angry, shaming, accusatory. Why haven't I heard from you? It's Father's Day. I thought I would hear from you today, and so I haven't, so I'm going to reach out to you. None of that. It has to be something more along the lines of, I was thinking of you today. It's Father's Day, and one of my proudest accomplishments in life is being a dad. I know I wasn't the best dad. I know I have a lot to learn. I just want you to know I feel honored to be your dad. It needs to be humble. It needs to show some emotional vulnerability, and it needs to be heartfelt. You can't fake this stuff, people. Our sons and daughters know when we are not being sincere. They know when we are blowing smoke, and they call it gaslighting, or they call it, pressure. Whatever it is, it's not positive. So if you can't send a message similar or somewhere along the lines of what I just shared, then I would suggest you seriously consider not reaching out. So self-reflect, step 1. Step 2 is decide whether to reach out. So is the past contact been met with silence or hostility? And if that's the case, again, consider giving space. If the communication has been neutral or positive, a simple non-pressure message like I just showed could be helpful. Again, you have to decide whether you're willing to take the risk of them pulling away further. The third step is what to say or what not to say. I just talked about that for a little bit. Keep it short, warm, pressure-free, guilt-free. Here's another example. Thinking of you today. I hope you're doing well. My door is always open. Love, Dad. Make sure the love, Dad is there. If you're talking about a daughter, same with your son. Use the language that fits for you so it's authentic to you. But make sure none of those tit-for-tat kind of emotions, the anger, the despair, the disbelief, seep into your message. Please don't bring up past conflicts. Don't bring up a demand or a response to something that they've asked for that is high risk in this particular situation. And don't make it about your pain, not about your pain. It's hurtful. I know not one person who has gotten through an estrangement or is in the middle of an estrangement who isn't feeling pain. Both parent and adult child. I'm saying that statement for both parent and the adult child. Step 4, if you don't hear back, please avoid spiraling into resentment, more anger. I knew he wouldn't respond. I knew she wouldn't respond. No matter what I do, they won't even give me a chance. Silence does not always mean rejection. Sometimes silence is just silence. Sometimes silence is a quiet moment where they've taken in what you've said and it has landed correctly. You're not asking for a response. Don't expect a response. The hope is that they will read it and that they will read it with an open mind and open heart. If you don't hear back from them, focus more on your own self-work. Continue working on the things you want to work on and developing your communication strategies. And then step 5, remember this is long-term rebuilding. You have to trust that this work is happening over time. Trust the process. You have to recognize and accept the fact that trust between you and your adult child is built over time. It is rebuilt over time. And when I say time, in estrangement, that's meaning 6 months to a year, maybe 2.5 years. This is not a fast process. Getting that trust back is slow and painstaking, and it's worth every ounce of energy you put into it. Every ounce of patience it takes. It is worth it. These are our sons and daughters we're talking about. And yes, they can be brutal. Yes, they can speak with abusive language. Yes, we get traumatized. And yes, it's fair to feel angry, resentful, disrespected. All of those things are real. And the investment of vulnerability and at your emotional expense is worth it. The last and final thoughts, let me just run over those quick, the 4 steps. So first we start with self-reflection. Step 2 is deciding whether to reach out. Step 3 is deciding what to say, making sure what not to say, and making sure the message is clean and heartfelt. Step 4, if you don't hear back, don't assume it's bad news. Don't assume it is an attack, a slight, or some kind of vindictive action. Silence is only silence. And step 5 is the long-term rebuilding. Remember that rebuilding trust takes time, and trust the process. Trust over time is very difficult. I understand the challenge. So now, final thoughts. Healing takes time, and focusing on patience and self-improvement will be a very powerful place for you to do the work that you're being asked to do by your son or daughter. If no contact happens this Father's Day, that doesn't mean it will never happen. 80% of estrangements resolve. Now, it doesn't mean that they become this happy, joyful, skipping down the sidewalk relationship. They do generally become trust-based and consistent. When they are mutually respectful and built on trust, they can grow into a very healthy and adult relationship. Remember that resources for ongoing support are available. Jump over to my website, When Our Adult Children Walk Away. Look for the classes that I'm offering this spring prior to Father's Day, specifically on the topics discussed in the 2 Father's Day podcast episodes. And then I want to ask you to subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you're on my mailing list. So when I send announcements out about new classes, new books to read, new blogs, you'll get those. So you'll get a heads up. I don't send out newsletters on a regular basis. I'm actually not very good at that. I don't send them out without something solid to tell you. I only send messages when I think there's something truly of value for you. I am not going to fill up your inbox daily with messages. It's just not going to happen. And I'd love it if you would leave a review for me, either in the fan mail or on my website or in Facebook. I just started a new Facebook group specifically for estranged parents. It's a small group. We are screening. There's some screening questions to make sure that we're all in, essentially the same place in our estrangement and our guilt process, our healing through the guilt. Make sure that you go out and leave a review, either Facebook, on my fan mail, on my website, and then share this episode with other people you know who are struggling, other dads. A number of people have found their way to this podcast. And I know that there are millions of other people out there who are hurting and in the same spot you're in. Different circumstances, but same spot. So dads, I want to tell you again, I appreciate you as a father. I appreciate how hard this work is and how lonely it is for our dads. Much more isolating than it is for our moms, just because of who we are and our roles. Know that you're not alone. I know that you're being brave. This takes courage. It takes tenacity. It takes determination and grit. I applaud you listening to this episode, and I encourage you to start listening to some of the other episodes that may be of interest to you or applicable to your situation. I hope you found this episode valuable to you, and I look forward to having you join me in another episode down the road. Thanks so much for listening and investing your time and your trust in me.